Hello, this is Lisa LaRose here on Connect to Love on PRN-FM, and I'm joined by the incredible Michael J. Russ. I want to say welcome, Michael. I'm super excited. You inspire me every show, and I'm so eager to embark on this conversation with you today. So, hello.
Thank you. Oh, definitely. Hello. Hello to you, too. It's the first show of the new year.
I know, and it's very exciting. And we are, I think, equally inspired. It's so interesting how the universe aligns things for Michael and I. Last week I had an idea about this concept of our cosmic potential, and of course, as the universe would have it, Michael sent a very, very interesting video to me this morning, although I didn't have any time to look at it, but it's so much in alignment with a quote that I found, because I've been bubbling all week since our last get-together, Michael, about what it is to have this cosmic potential. And so the quote that I found was actually by Rumi, and it said that the universe is not outside of you. Look inside yourself. Everything you want, you already are. And I absolutely adore that quote. And so, of course, then it gets me thinking, and I thought, well, what really is cosmic potential? And I think unlocking your cosmic potential is about realizing those infinite possibilities within you and aligning with that highest vision. And we explore infinite possibilities on each and every episode here. And I think that as you start to cultivate that and really create that awareness that we do have possibilities outside what we see in our day-to-day, that's how we're able to embrace change, growth, and connection, and just allow things to flow a little bit better. But since I didn't listen to that episode, I'd love for you just to share with the audience just a little bit about what inspires and what you were sharing with me before the show, and I said to you how much it relates to this idea of cosmic potential.
Yeah, thank you. Lot to digest, and I would encourage our audience to go to Next Level Soul and check out this interview with Gary Zukav, because it's an hour and 12 minutes, and I'm going to kind of encapsulate a couple of the bigger applications of this, and it's really, really so interesting. One of the things that he did say, which is unique, is that the universe is inside of you; it's not outside of you. Rumi was right. Let's put it that way. Way back when he lived, it's amazing how intuitive and how tuned in he was to the connection, to our connection to the universe, to the outside world. Life is perceptual. I've said this, you've said this, we've said this for quite a while right now, and I've been fascinated by that for the last 30 years, is that life is perceptual. And it's kind of a conundrum for some people, because when they look at their outer world, they're not seeing that outer world as a reflection of what's going on inside of them, their own emotional intelligence, their own emotional awareness. And so Gary talks about this concept of authentic power, right? Versus external power. And the entire world that we see before us, that we're exposed to, is operating from external power. External power being fear, worry, anger, greed, hate, all these lower frequencies that resonate with people, which is why they continue to perpetuate. And what we're looking to do, and I think they started out the conversation talking about, as Ferrari likes to do, is talk about the world, and why is the world in such a way that it's in right now, and he wants to get that opinion from everybody as to why we're experiencing what we're experiencing, wars and there's election upheaval all over the world, all these little things, right? All of this is external. And he simply said it's a reflection of what's going on inside of everybody. Everybody's bought into external power, right? The billionaire syndrome, the millionaire syndrome. Everything if you tune into YouTube or Instagram and other things, when you talk about if you start watching things that are based on external power, like making money, ways to hack more income, or side hustles and stuff like this to make more money and this and that. They know the buttons to push. The buttons to push are your greed button and your fear button and your avoidance button. And that's external power. Internal power is based on love. Authentic power is love, what we talk about on this show every single episode. And love as authentic power comes from within, and can only be generated from within, not from external power. You can't get to love from external power. You can only understand that what you're dealing with on the outside world is simply a reflection of your own thinking. And it's, I thought about it for a second. I was thinking about the algorithms that Facebook and Instagram and all these other social media outlets actually use, Twitter or X or whatever it is. They've tapped into this to how to use external power to make you feel and take action, make you feel bad, bring you into lower frequencies and take action from lower frequencies. That's what they've done. It is amazing, and they're really good at it, and they're able to do it because it has nothing to do with love. Mm-hmm. Nothing. It has to do with structure. It has to do with hierarchy. It has to do with greed. It has to do with fear and frustration and worry and anger, right? Because that gets people to take action, and they make money off of other people's misery. That's what they do, and the whole system is set up that way. So the only way that you can actually create authentic power is from inside of you, and we've talked about this a lot, about how you think and act from love. And in a nutshell, Zukav was talking about the fact that acting, you know that you're on your way when you begin to take a fearful state and act from love in that fearful state, right? That state of anger or fear or worry, when you begin to act and respond to that from love versus the fear, the worry, the anger, you shift your whole thought process. That's when you begin to take control over your emotions, and you up your emotional awareness. It's absolutely fascinating to think about. It's a hour and 12 minutes of wonder, of messaging that's coming from a different direction. Because we've talked before about, there's lots of people we've talked about, we've interviewed, and we've discussed that have this similar message. Abraham has it. The teachers have it. There are other channels that are bringing it into Bashar. They're all bringing it into giving us this message from a different take, a different angle, so to speak. And that's because different angles resonate with different people. Not the same angle won't resonate with everyone. And so I love getting these different angles. And this one is absolutely fabulous. In the midst of a fearful state, to be able to shift your thinking to love and responding to whatever is causing the fear from a love perspective, that is powerful stuff. And when you do it over and over again, you develop that emotional awareness. And he's talked about, how you feel, understanding he's the second person this week that talked about sitting back and just asking yourself a question about a topic and asking your body to respond. Right? I know you're familiar with this, when you're sensing the sensations in your body when you ask your body a question, like, show me yes, show me no, and then sitting quietly and seeing what your body does to yes and does to no, so you can develop an emotional awareness of how you're feeling, right? Kind of a very powerful tool for you instead of seeking answers from external sources. Seeking answers from external power, you're using your own emotional awareness to discern where you move, where you go, what's right for you.
Exactly, yeah. Michael. You're right. I teach my clients that exact thing, that when you say to pay attention when you say the word yes out loud, how does that feel in your stomach? And then when you say the word no, what does that feel like in your stomach? And oftentimes, and it's not even a conscious thing. The person's body, when they say yes, they'll actually move forward, lean forward. You'll see it. And when they say no, the body will actually move to the back. And as you become more consciously aware of those subtleties, you can ask yourself those questions. And I find it so fascinating because I had lunch with a friend of mine today, and we were speaking, and I'm listening to your conversation, like what you're sharing now, and it's so interesting because I think back to 2019 with the whole COVID process, and there was a document that was just released that was developed in 2015, and it was all about being able to control people through fear in the midst of a pandemic. Yeah. And I don't want to even get into that, but I find that so fascinating because during that whole 2 years, I kept going back to my center. What's true for me? Is this a yes or a no? And if it didn't feel right, and I would not allow myself to go into the fear.
Right.
And I would not allow it at all. And so I find that so fascinating. And it's interesting because the wisdom of Rumi, and this going back to that cosmic potential, he was a 13th century poet. This is not somebody that was 18th century. It's just back to the 13th century. And for Rumi, choosing love over fear was the path to unlocking the highest potential and connecting with the divine. Right. And so when you think about manipulation, if we are, where do we have? We have fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of progress, fear of not going anywhere, fear of a relationship.
Fear of not having anything.
All or nothing, right?
Yeah,
but instead, when we choose growth over comfort, love over fear, then all of a sudden we have this whole world that opens up before us. And I think that that's what Gary Zukav, who wrote The Seed of the Soul, was really trying to illustrate. I think that in the books that I was given early on in my journey, that was one of the first. And then I read his book, Soul Stories. And his teachings really, it was all about partnerships and relationship and mutual growth and creating from love and forming partnerships as powerful vehicles for positive change, both as an individual and also collectively, so that we could go beyond just merely surviving into thriving and into a space where there was unity. And I truly believe that was one of his messages, love over fear, shift in creation. How do we, and what is the seed of the soul, which was his, and I apologize because I'm not sure what his newest books are all about, but seed of the soul, what is that? That's in my opinion, your cosmic potential. How do you tap into that? How do you unlock that cosmic potential? And maybe it's not so much that it's a destination that we say, okay, well, I'm unlocking this and then I don't have to do anything more. I think that it's a continual process, and that as you align your mindset and go back to love, you're going to embrace a challenge, and then you're like, okay, no, you know what? I have this challenge, but I'm going to step into that heart-centered truth. And then when you do that and you anchor in, and even if it takes a couple of deep breaths, then you allow yourself that grace to say, okay, what is the highest vision for me? And how can I co-create my reality from love? And that's where it lies, in my opinion.
Awesome. There's something that there's something that you said towards the end, which I've found extremely profound, and that is that intellect cannot experience love or joy. Intellect cannot experience love, and it can't experience joy because it's external power. Its source is external, which is interesting because somebody else I was listening to this last week was railing about the educational system in this country and how it's devolved into strictly intellect. There is nothing is being taught about connection. There's no opportunity for connection, no opportunity to experience joy, to experience love. It's all about sit down and remember some useless information and regurgitate that useless information so we can get money for the school system, right? And so that you can go off and do whatever it is that you're going to do intellectually. And all of this has to change, right? Because we're raising, through this system, we are raising individuals who aren't connected to love. They're connected to external sources that they then use, that they believe are the source of their own happiness, their own joy, their own love and self-love. And the switch has to be flipped, where we begin to come at life from a perspective of love, teaching young people, kids, from an early age, how to think and act from love and connection, and to stop and feel the joy in the things that they do, so they can get a sense of what joy and love feel like, right? Get to know themselves, develop that emotional awareness, right? Because now we have we've got worldwide billions of people who are like robots. You know, you push the fear button and they respond. You push the greed button, they respond. And it's interesting when you flip that switch and you understand that the intelligence of something doesn't involve love. It doesn't involve it at all. It's just intelligence. It's just knowing some facts. And it's not involved but when this is, in my view, why we have a state in this world of people who are depressed, and they're, in a state of discontent because they're not connected to the love that they have within. They have, when you say it, they've swallowed the Kool-Aid. They've drank the Kool-Aid. They have fallen for the banana in the tailpipe of you've got to do this, be that, in order to be happy, and you have to find someone to marry and have kids with, so that you're perpetuating your species. So grandma has a grandson. It's like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Let's stop and think about this for a moment. What about me? What is my path? What do I like? What do I drive? What makes me feel joy? What makes me feel love? There's a lot of anxiety that didn't exist 30, 40 years ago. A lot of anxiety. A lot of people are anxious. Wow, having anxiety attacks. And I'm like, I must not be the first one to say, I don't relate to anxiety attacks. I grew up in a different world. That doesn't mean I don't have compassion and empathy for people who experience those. However, someone brighter than me once said that anxiety is the culmination of 5 negative emotions all at once, where you just don't know where to go, what to do, what to think. You've got, fear and worry and anger and concern and hate, all these things, boom, coming in at the same time. And so that your brain is kind of discombobulated. And so it responds, and in a negative way. It physically responds to having all those negative emotions occur at the same time. And I'm like, well, where did this come from? Why do we have this? Maybe that's the wrong question to ask, but
no, I think you actually asked the perfect question, Michael, because as you were speaking about anxiety, and you're asking, and you go back to the teachers and schools, and I think it starts at a young age in many cultures, is all about high performance. My sister lived in Tokyo for many years, and the school that she taught at was more expensive than per year than my college education was per year. But it was all in the culture at the time that she was there. It was all about your child performing and getting the best grades possible at an early age so that they could get into the right school. And it was all about performance. And unfortunately, high performance standards, and even in offices where people have reviews, where they're reviewed, and how is your performance, how is it measured? So you have this anxiety, and you're being judged against your peers, and it's created a different type of culture where I think it is sort of, again, that all or nothing. You either are a team player and you're a high performer versus something else. And I heard something the other day, and it was an interview with Steve Young, who was the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, and he had said that when he was in school, he was a good football player, and he was a good quarterback, and then went to college and had an opportunity to be drafted by the 49ers. But when he saw his name on the roster, he was the lowest man on the totem pole, and he thought, well, maybe it's alphabetical. My last name's a Y. And then he realized, no, that Montana was at the top. And he said, so it really did a lot to his ego, because if you're used to being number one, and then you're going into an environment where you're no longer number one. And he said he was not really able to perform at the caliber that he did before. And then he started to look at Joe Montana and the way that he threw the ball, and he thought, he's got a lot of power. I can learn something from him. So he started mimicking his movements, and he started learning from somebody that was a colleague and able to really embody that. And he said, and then he decided that he was going to be the best backup quarterback that he could be. And he just kept doing that and doing that and doing that until finally one day he had a shot, and then he got an opportunity to be the main quarterback. And so I thought that it was such a great metaphor about how you unlock that potential. He just didn't give up and say, oh, well, you know what, I'm not number one, I'm going to give up, I'm going to quit, I'm not going to do that. He did truly, in that way, practice self-love and say, no, you know what, I do have a lot of potential. I do have a potential to be number one and to be the star quarterback. I just need to take a step back. I can learn from Jim McMahon. I can grow. I can accept failure, that perhaps that I'm not the best, and I can grow from the experience. And I mean, the rest is really history. And I think that he's taken it from on the playing field into also the business world, and which is what I was listening to as an interview, a business interview with him. And I found it fascinating. I didn't really follow his career, so it was something that was really inspiring and enlightening to me. So I appreciated it.
Just for our in case there's one football fan out there, Niner fan, it was actually Joe Montana, not.
Oh, Joe Montana, thank you.
Thank you. Because McMahon played for the Chicago Bears, I believe. He was a fabulous quarterback, took him to the Super Bowl.
Well, that's
anyway,
because I'm Canadian. I'm a hockey girl.
I'm not going to worry about it.
Thank you.
I know you're a hockey fan. Yeah, it's not a big deal. It's interesting because
Michael,
while we're talking about sports a second, I just want to say this because it was again the book that we're listening to together, Spirit Hacking. And he was talking about, the shaman there with the book, he was talking about sports and entertainment, and how sports and entertainment, which are technically external power, right? That's external power. When you worship, you're worshiping someone who's doing something, who's excelling in something, be it sports, be it movies, be it music, whatever it is, when that is instead of developing your own your own emotional awareness, your own authentic power. We've got a culture in the world that has all these building blocks of external power, and I know people who spend Saturday and Sunday during various seasons, hours on Saturday, hours on Sunday, watching college and professional football, and it never really made much sense to me because I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit around and my mind is not going to be, I'm going to be vegging out on something that I have no control over. Yet, if you sit and watch, that external thing is going to make you feel one way or another. And this is like, everything's like that. Business is like that. If you sit around and watch business shows, if you sit around and watch investment shows, if you sit around and watch Shark Tank, or you watch this, or whatever it is you watch, you come to an understanding at some point, I hope, that all of these external sources follow the same playbook. They all, at their heart, only succeed if they get you to feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. That's otherwise they're not going to be successful, right? They're not going to be successful at all. And that being out, that when you engage with those things in a way that is, I would say, borders on addiction, because of the way it makes you feel, because you get to root for somebody and you get to feel bad when they lose and feel happy when they win. That's all external. Mm-hmm. And we spend more time in our culture on external things and less on internal.
Right.
And again, this is one of those switches that has to flip. We got to see the other side of the coin, so to speak, in order to move past where we are. Because, as it's been said by people more tapped in than we are, the way we feel goes out into the consciousness of the universe. And by the way, interestingly enough, I think I started out this show saying that the universe is inside of you, as Rumi said. The universe is inside of you. It's not outside of you. Everything you see outside is also on the inside of you. The whole universe, and the universe says, and all of the galaxies and billions of galaxies, it's all inside of us.
You're
and right. It's a lot to, kind of take in. However, because we have been trained so diligently to think and act from outside sources, external sources, then this is where we are at this point. We're kind of relearning what we're here for, and what we're all about, and what true happiness and true love, authentic love, right? What is it?
Right.
What is your authentic power? Love. Everything comes from that. By the way, there's another great takeaway from this Gary Zukav interview, and that is when he says, only love brings you what's real. Mm-hmm. Only love brings you what's real. Wrap your head around that one, right? Only love brings you what is real. All the rest is an intangible, an illusion. It's amazing that when you sit around and think, okay, I could honestly, personally for me, I could sit on the couch and just be happy, just being quiet. Matter of fact, that's one of the joys, and my joys in life is sitting down and being quiet and just letting the outside world fall away. It's so peaceful to connect with yourself, to connect with your own soul, in whatever circumstances. I'm thinking about that when I see the sunrise in the morning and set in the evening. That's kind of what I'm thinking about. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a glorious look, but I think internalizing that and seeing how amazingly loving that whole look is. The when the sun is coming up through the trees and the rays are scattering, and how do you feel when that's happening, right? How do you feel? And I know people who don't even take the time of day just to sit for a moment, to take one moment and think about that, because they're busy going somewhere. They're busy involved in some external thing. And
you're right.
That's where the joy is. That's where the love
Mm-hmm.
is. That's where it is.
You're right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So much fun.
And I'm chuckling to myself because I live in Steeler country, which is probably why I don't know very much about the 49ers.
Really?
But I see it all the time that if the Steelers win, everybody's happy. If they don't, then it changes the whole dynamic of the city.
Right.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even tell you honestly when they're playing. But I think also too, when you were speaking about fear, I think about the shows that are on TV. I don't watch shows like Fear Factor, things like that. They don't make me feel good.
Yeah,
and
true.
Yeah, and Gary Zukav, when he talked about in his books, he always said that love and fear are the true part for me energies that drive human behavior, and that fear constricts, it isolates, it perpetuates pain and separation, where love expands and it connects, and it works on a totally different wavelength. And so for me, I always want to keep my energy aligned. Love vibrates at a higher frequency, and it connects us to source, and that is where I want to be. And so I always, if I have the opportunity, I always try to align myself with love and allow that flow of the universe to center and ground into me. And if being loving means sitting in front of the TV with a bowl of popcorn that I made at home and watching a sappy movie on the Hallmark Channel or a comedy or whatever it is,
they'll definitely pull your strings on those channels.
I know.
Formulaic, but hey.
Well, yeah. No, go ahead. What were you going to say, Michael?
I was saying it's what's interesting about the whole thing, and we go Stephen stepping back to the Steelers thing, is that you can when you get a whole city thinking one way or another. I mean, it's just as Gary and Bashar and Carol Collins will say, that those thoughts don't dissipate. They go out into the consciousness, right? They go into the global consciousness, the universal consciousness. They go somewhere, right? And as Carol Collins, I'm paraphrasing, is a believer that they're there, and you have the ability when you're in a negative state or a positive state to tap into whatever that thought is. Kind of an interesting conversation we had when she was on the show, but it's there, and we can tap into it or not. And I just choose to tap into other things. And by the way, I feel the same way you do. I'll sit down and watch a sappy movie that, and I understand it is formulaic. I do understand everything about it, what's going to happen in the next moment, and all that, because it's pretty much the same. However, the beauty of it is when I'm engaged, and I know the movie's about love, okay, and I know there's some movements, and there's some acting from external sources, and there's some idiocy, and there's some things that occur in it that people experience, because we're talking about, in many cases in these movies, people who they're not in touch with who they are, right? And they're acting from external sources within the movie to begin with. And then all of a sudden, the love arrow, Cupid's arrow strikes, and they're thinking differently. And it's interesting to see the transformational aspect of it.
It is.
I watched the transformation. It's not the words, it's not the scenes. It's you can sense the momentum and transformation. That's what I'm looking for. And that's what I look for in any movie, right? When is that key point of transformation that is written into this formulaic setup? What is it going to be this time?
Michael, part of it, too, is that you find inspiration. I find it, even though it's a story that's written, there's a journey that people are on in these stories, and they overcome a challenge, and you watch it, and you look for them a lot of them embrace the challenges, and they don't say, no, I'm not going to persevere through this. There's a setback that they encounter, and they look at those challenges as an opportunity, and there's growth, and maybe sometimes there's failure, but you also see they come to a realization that they can be kind to themselves, and I think they teach lessons of self-compassion and love, and that you can do anything. I think that it does. It cultivates a different mindset when you watch them. And I think, you can apply that to life. So if you say to yourself, well, I can't do this, then add the word yet at the end. Like, I can't do this yet. Maybe I don't have that skill set. Maybe I don't know how to skateboard yet, but I have friends that are very good at it, and they're here to help me. And probably I'll fall a couple of times. But I've got shin pads and knee pads and elbow pads and a helmet, and it's okay. I'm not looking at it. If I fall down, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm not any good at this and give up after the first time.
That's very true. I mean, that is absolutely true. I think there's certain movies like Hallmark movies and others that have a formula of realization, a formula that involves transformation, right? In transmuting bad circumstances into positive circumstances, and where people gain the wherewithal, let's call it, to jump off a cliff and know that there's a net that's going to catch them, right? There's that point to the movie as well, where it's something that they haven't done before, but they do it because their heart is guiding them to do it. And again, you could say, oh yeah, you can see the formula aspect of it, or you can actually sit and watch how that movie unfolds, how the realization occurs, how the transmutation occurs, how the characters move from negative to positive. And to me, that's where the joy is. And with any movie, especially movies that are based on the best movies that are based on true stories, true events. They're successful because that's what they focus on. They show you the hardship, they show you the perseverance, and then they show you the pivot point. And then they show you the acceptance after that. It ends with acceptance, right? Where whomever it is or whomever they are, in this particular movie, they at the end there's an acceptance, a general acceptance, where they've moved through and they've shown their mettle, so to speak, and they've persevered to accomplish. And it's not so much about the accomplishment, but to me it's the pivot point where there's a global consciousness change, right? That to me is the Triple Eight's, the current movie that's on right now on Netflix, about the black wax WACs that in World War II that were sent to England to fail in terms of sorting mail, right? They were sent over there so that they could be scapegoats, and they ended up doing the job in half the time that they were given, because they believed in themselves and they persevered and they allowed their intuition to take over, women's intuition to take over, because the men were all telling them. They were operating from I don't know if you've seen that movie, but it's sort of like it's true story, and at the end they highlight a couple of the women who they went to who told the story, who were actually wax at the time. They were in their 90s, and it's just a fascinating movie. And there's a lot of talk. I had talked to a client today about it out of San Francisco. She said, "Have you seen this movie?" "Yeah, I have." It makes you feel absolutely awesome. I love movies that can make me feel like I can do anything. When I'm done with the movie, it's like, I can do absolutely anything that I want to do in my life. I can move left instead of going right all the time, or vice versa. I can operate from a perspective of love and succeed just like someone who operates from a perspective of greed, intelligence exclusively, statistically, and it's more than just hard work. It's about believing in yourself and actually enjoying what it is that you're doing. It's the people I see, so many. You talked about earlier about Japanese culture. And yes, Asian cultures are very focused on achievement. And I think in California, the woman who wrote a book about tiger bombs, moms who push their kids to excel in school and get great grades. I'm not going to be the judge of. I'm not here to judge them as to whether they become loving beings or not. But I do know that I've met some people who, you know, they want to be plumbers, not doctors and lawyers. You know, they want to be electricians. They want to be creatives. They want to be business owners. They want to open their own restaurant. They want to become actors. You know, and it's they want to follow their heart, so to speak, and not just a simple formula for becoming successful. And you know, it's money that becomes the material success, which becomes the judge of whether or not you've succeeded in life. And that's a wicked taskmaster. It really is. Money alone is being the optimal degree of success or not. You know, whether or not you've achieved success. That's being sold left and right now because of the chasm between 40% of the country that has actually 10% of the country of the world's population and owns 40% of the wealth. This chasm is big. The only way to close that chasm is a statistic. Right? It's a statistic, and it makes a lot of people feel less than. And in my view, the only way to counter that is to feel more than, to live from abundance. Not because that a mindset will get you more wealth. It's because when you feel fantastic, when you love yourself and you experience joy in everything that you do, you find the joy in everything, including the things that you don't think are so comfortable. You find the joy in it. You don't have any need to follow the greed train and the fear train and the worry train. You're not going to get on those trains. And therefore, you don't need to buy what the billionaires are selling that keeps them being billionaires and you financially poor in a state of lack, in a state of struggle and survival, as you mentioned earlier. That, to me, is the fascinating thing about creating a reality. You're actually creating your emotional reality. Your external reality changes because you change from within. And that's the fascinating thing to me. When you start thinking and acting from love, the way it changes, the way you see the world. In my view, when you're thinking lack, you're not thinking love. You're thinking lack. You're thinking external. You lack something. You're thinking externally instead of internally from love. And this is again one of those pivots that needs to be made, the switches that need to be flipped. We live in a consumer-based society built on external power. External power. And as I believe Pan Gregory was talking about, hey, that's going to come to a screeching halt in the next 10 years. That people are waking up. They're becoming more aware of the game that's being played with external power, how external power is being used to drive people emotionally to the depths of negativity and through fear and worry and anger and hate, divisiveness, right? Divisiveness. That benefits someone. It's just not you.
Right.
Getting caught up in that doesn't help. It doesn't change your life. It makes it worse. And, that message is one that I know needs to be spread more, even amongst young people, because generationally we have to start getting people more into thinking and acting from love. That's how we'll change future generations.
I think that's exactly what part of unlocking the cosmic potential is all about, Michael, because as we start to align and make the choices rooted in love, that allows us to create that ripple effect of positivity that impacts the world. And I have been following I followed them for a long time, but Sungai Watch out of Bali. And I don't know if you've seen what's been going on, but there have been unprecedented amounts of plastic waste that have washed up on the shores. 70 tons of plastic waste. And what's interesting is, there's 3 people that started Sungai Watch, but there were probably, I think, over 2,000 volunteers, even tourists who were on vacation that came out to clean up those beaches and to watch it. I mean, it just brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah.
But when you're on vacation, you can look and you can say, well, that's not my problem. I don't live here. Like, well, let's go shopping. We can't go to the beach. But what would love choose? That to be the highest timeline. How do you unlock your cosmic potential? You make a choice to pause and breathe, shift to love, and then that's what you choose. And then that's how you set your daily intentions. You approach your life with compassion, understanding, openness. Maybe it isn't your problem. Maybe you weren't the person who dropped that plastic that ended up in the ocean, that washed up on the beach. But guess what? It just takes a small act. It took them, it was amazing to watch. I mean, they had everything bundled up. They had bags. And then to see the beach clean, it was transformational. I think for everybody that was there, probably volunteering that day. And they showed at one point that it was raining, and not one person left. They all stayed in the rain to clean and to make a difference. And I'm sure that each one of those people experienced a journey of transformation. There was a camaraderie, there was connection, there was unity, they were aligning, and I'm sure the universe was just smiling from ear to ear.
Took the word right out of my mouth. I was thinking connection. There's the other benefit of doing that is connection, and the feeling. There's the feeling of self-love. You have to love yourself in order to engage in that action. You know, if you're thinking from external sources like, oh, it's not me, I'm going to go play golf instead of, helping clean the beach up. You may think to yourself, oh, it's not my thing. I'm not the cause of this. Well, technically, you're not the cause of it. The mindset of Western culture is the cause of it. The mindset, the consciousness of lack, the consciousness of survival, of struggle. That is, in my view, the cause of that. And because I'm telling you, I'll see it down here. I'll take a walk, and I'll go down this road, and I'll see there are no houses on the road. It's just a connector road and there's forest on one side and some apartments on the other, and a creek or whatever. And I'll see somebody's late night snack, the cup and the bag on the ground, like they just threw it out the window, right? And I look at it and I go, wow, that's just so interesting. If there's a trash can nearby, I'll pick it up and I'll walk, when I'm on my way back and put it in the trash can. I mean, I live in this neighborhood. I don't want that kind of garbage and thought process. And it makes me think of, it makes me wonder how can we engage thinking in our educational system where that kind of a self-love thought process that won't create that. It's like you have to not love yourself if you're doing that. You're only thinking about yourself, and you're thinking, if your outer world, your inner world is a mirror of your outer world, then what does that person think about themselves?
Right.
That's the question I ask. Right.
Well, I think, Michael, it's a really powerful metaphor, because you think about the garbage, right? The garbage washing up. The garbage washes up on the shore. We have fear, doubt, anxiety. I consider that inner garbage. And at some point, it's going to wash out. Right. And what are we going to do with it? And what I love about Sungai Watch is they actually, after they I don't remember how many years it's been now since they've been cleaning the rivers and the ocean, but they had all these warehouses filled with all this plastic, and they had it sorted. And now they came up with a process to cleanse the plastic, and then they transform it into chairs. And then another gentleman saw what they were doing, and he said, wow. He said, I can use your recycled plastic, and I can make suitcases And he uses the plastic to make the most fabulous suitcases. It's called Soul Guard luggage. And
yeah, Soul Guard.
I've never quite seen luggage quite like it. I think it's
Soul
like
Guard.
a carry-on closet suitcase. Yeah, it's amazing. It's
I have one in my attic.
amazing.
It's the one I love. It's the one I use this year.
But isn't it a powerful metaphor for transformation? How you can take something that's just junk and it was done with love. These guys started this project because they wanted to see change. There's a part of them that unlocked that cosmic potential. I'm sure when they were young, they never thought that that's what they would be doing. Picking up plastic waste and making it into chairs and tables and whatnot. It was something that they saw a need for, and they dropped into their heart and like, how can we make a difference? And they did. And I think that that's what it is. I mean, unlocking your cosmic potential, it is. It's about the idea of finding something that empowers us to see life as an opportunity so we can express our highest selves. And that's done through love.
It is. It is. Absolutely. You know, there's lots of, I think it's, I don't know, I think we were talking about this before, but Gary Zukav was talking about the fact that you can't get people to be more loving by putting, hundreds of billboards coast to coast. You can't do that. Putting a billboard up and think love, act love, whatever, be love, isn't going to work. People just watch it. They'll look at the billboard. And he said it's something very, very interesting. That it makes the people who put the billboards up feel good about themselves, which is, again, external power. You're allowing something outside of you to feel a certain way instead of generating that from inside. And that foundation you're talking about, the guys that started, what's it called? I didn't get the full name of it.
Sungai. It's SUNGAI. Watch. Yeah, Sungai Watch it's two brothers and a girl. I'm not sure if she's related to them or not.
Yeah, what's interesting is there's a tremendous amount of joy and love that is derived from picking up, from seeing something clean, by bringing something back. I mean, there's a cascading effect of how it impacts the fauna in the water, the flora and fauna on the shores, how it impacts the quality of water. It's just like this ecosystem. Just picking up the plastic on the beach prevents all these other things from impacting your consciousness, global consciousness, and global environment. It's just to me that there's power in that, such power that it's just mind blowing. And they're not the only ones. The guys who developed the way to clean the big
Four Oceans.
Yeah,
Four Oceans.
Yeah,
they're fantastic too. I mean, they all have to be applauded.
Yeah,
they really do.
And they've cleaned up the Chesapeake Bay. They've cleaned up the Hudson. They've cleaned up in the Northeast. Used to be thriving clam and mussel businesses up in there. Thriving clams and mussels growing by the thousands until the water got polluted, and there were decades where they couldn't survive and thrive because of all the toxicity. And then that was cleaned up, and they came back. And now there's a thriving, the mussels are thriving, and the clams are thriving. And it's a joy to see that we can just, again, what causes that problem? People's obsession with external power, gathering as much of it as they possibly can, and at the expense of global consciousness and everybody else involved. It's all for me and none for you, right? That mentality is what we have right now. That it's pervasive. It's in everything. Ubiquitous, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. It's in everything, and the only reason that anything out there can thrive from a consumer perspective, from a sales perspective, every product out there is kind of tapped into that external power. Because if you feel lack, you'll go buy, because you think what you're buying is going to make you feel better about yourself and about your life. And that feeling of lack that you can't go buy that thing makes you, again, feel less loving of yourself and your life. It's this perpetual discontent, in my view.
Well, I think that's the exciting thing about this year. We spoke about it on the previous episode about this year being the number 9 for the year of completion. So if we think about, and it's also the year of the snake. So if you think about the Oribus, which is a snake attached to its tail, is sort of that unending circle. So here we are at that point of completion. And I think within each of us, and we spoke about this also, that there is a sovereignty that we are reclaiming, and that's that inherent power. And with that inherent power and that personal sovereignty is that cosmic potential just waiting to be unlocked and ignited. And I think that's really where we're at. And I think the human spirit, it's within us, the spark of the divine, that we can do anything that we set our minds to, including as you and I do each week, and each one of our listeners do. You tune in for a reason, because there's something within you that's waiting to be unlocked so that you can step into who you were meant to be. And if we can be your cheerleaders or inspirations or spark something, please let us know, because I am excited for the prospects of what's meant to unfold, and are exploring further into our connection with love. Absolutely. And I'm so grateful for the time that we share each week. And Michael, for and I am going to watch the Gary Zukav. I listened to it after the show.
Fabulous piece of work. Fabulous. Maybe we could put the link in our description.
Sure.
To that, because
Absolutely.
I honestly maybe make a note of that, because there's a lot of love there. Gary's always exuded a lot of love, and what you said is absolutely true. Authentic power. We step into it. This is the year where we as a consciousness, as a global community, begin to step into our come together in connection, come together in love, think and act from love instead of. And here's my challenge to our listeners, and that is, when you're feeling worried or fearful about something, or you're in avoidance mode, you're in judgment mode, remind yourself in those times that you can act, you can choose love instead of that, of any of those negative emotions. You can choose love and give it a go. Make an attempt. Apply love instead. Do it once, then do it twice, then do it 3 times, and keep doing it. Just remain alert and aware to how you feel, and make sure that you begin to choose love over those negative emotions, those negative feelings you have. Get to know that, and your life will begin to mirror that transformation that you actually are making in that moment. And the people will begin to do the same. They will come. People, you'll connect with more people who are thinking and acting just like you in that way.
Yeah, through the law of attraction. And Michael, I believe you're absolutely right that choice. I choose love. Consciously choosing that transforms not only our personal lives and our personal reality, but it does contribute to the collective. It does shift what's going on the planet towards greater harmony and enlightenment. And I just am excited about it. I mean, change isn't easy, but we just have to trust that love will guide us through. It guides us through the unknown. How many times have we, been unsure about something, and somebody will just come up and say, give you a hug and say, it's going to be okay. And next thing you know, you're on the other end of it. You're on the other end of that challenge.
I'm not in any way going to. I'm not discounting anything that you said, but however, I want to put out there that, and even Carol Collins would agree with this, the teachers would. Change is easy. We have to tell ourselves it is easy. It is easy. We got to get on the easy train. Push the easy button, right? That's what we have to do. We keep telling ourselves we create these hurdles for ourselves when we tell ourselves it's difficult, it's going to be dramatic, it's going to be traumatic. No, that's a perception. The perception is it's easy. Let's adopt that perception, that change is easy, and that we can act more from love than any other emotion. It's easy. We just do it.
It is. Exactly. Playing off of the other thing. Exactly, Michael. Aligning with the energy of love is easy breezy. I love that. Thank you so much.
It's easy.
And what a great way to close out the show. It's easy. Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us, and until next week, blessings to you all.
Bye-bye.